Talk. I'm here with my friend Alan. Crash.
Yeah.
Crash. Like crash, but not crash.
Yeah, actually, it's
crash.
Not to offend myself, but I usually say it's scratch without the S is the best way. Crash.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's German, so they just put all the consonants in it that they can, and then one vowel, and then you just get our last name.
There we go. Yes.
So.
And if you don't recognize him, he's one of our worship leaders and sound people.
Sound guy.
And
I help with the youth a little bit.
Youth ministry and sometimes events and on an as needed basis.
Yeah, I do.
Many things on your job description in the church.
So it's one of my 5 strengths from StrengthsFinder is responsibility, which is a great thing and a terrible thing. And actually, it's kind of what we're talking about today,
That's a good segue
so there you
here.
go.
So we're glad that you guys are here today. And we are going to talk about the message and the scripture from Matthew 25.
Yeah.
With the parable of the talents. And I have to say, this is like one of my favorite parables, even though it's kind of like, ooh, at the end.
Yeah.
Like it kind of gives you that feeling. But for me, it's been like, that piece of like just the overall idea that what I have, all of it, like who I am, my gifts, what I own, where I am in life, like it's a gift.
Absolutely.
And very well, like I could be in a totally different situation, and neither is because of anything I've done.
Right. And that's actually sort of daunting as well, because you start to realize the older that you get that the condition of what you're living in has been or can be directly affected by how you have taken on all of those gifts or all those responsibilities, right? So if you spread yourself so thin that you're not focused on anything specifically, you're really not giving into, you're not being the best that you can at anything specific. Right. So that's the in StrengthsFinders we talk about strengths in the balconies and the basement. So that's the basement of responsibility. Is sure, I'll say yes to everything, but can you do everything well? Right. So you have to. That's
or everything relies on me.
Right, and then that's the other basement is because I have all this responsibility. I'm really bad at or someone in the basement of responsibility say I'm really bad at delegating things to other people. Like the weight of all of that is on me. I'm going to take it all, and I'm not going to give any of that responsibility to anybody else because I need it to be. It's me, it's my responsibility.
It's all part of that. And I think that's where, like, in the story that Jesus tells, the master entrusts these servants with those very kind of like amounts of opportunity, basically, and it's really about how they invest it, and I think less about what they have, but just like the sheer fact of investing, and not necessarily monetarily, like he's telling us that we should invest monetarily, but just the fact of doing it, period. And that's what's rewarded. It's not like he could care less about the actual amount. And I wrote down, it's not the profit, it's the purpose or the intent, right? It's the kavanah. So he gave double whatever they raised out of that, he gave equal back, right? So again, that goes back to that responsibility thing. Like, okay, if I give nothing into this responsibility, am I going to get anything back from it? Right, most likely not. Right.
So I empathize greatly with this guy that got yelled at by the master. Because if you're in a position where you feel closed in by all the responsibility, you still are trying to make sure, like I can empathize, like, okay, I'm going to keep it safe. Something in the past has told me or taught me that if I don't keep it safe, that something bad could happen. So I'm just going to bury it. I'm just going to make sure that it stays safe. Instead of having the freedom to say, okay, I can take this. I've been given all kinds. I've been given bounty of things. And now I'm going to lean into it. And then surely, we know that it will only profit. itself.
And I think of so many people that, you know, and at times myself included, that like we bury it, and it's because of like, oh, I tried using it in the past, or I did this before and it didn't work, or whatever it is. And just like, I just think of like how many buried talents we have among us. And like when those things, if they were just brought to the surface, if they were just one thing that was done with them, like what could that look like? And that's I don't know, that's like, that could be game changing, like in the course of our lives. And I don't know, I just, that whole idea at the very end of the parable, where you know, he talks to the 5 and the 2, and he said, you know, my good and faithful servant. You know, it's often used when it's like, oh, well, when somebody dies, and when they reach heaven, and you want to hear those words and that kind of thing. But what does it look like to be faithful here and now? With those gifts, with what I have. When the safest thing to do, when all of my being just wants to say, just say it safe, don't do anything, don't say anything, don't use it, don't go there, like don't take that, something bad can happen. Like when all of that is happening, like, do I resist that tension?
Yeah, we talked about faith a few years ago with our teens. Faith requires belief, trust, and action, right? So you have to believe. Like when we go on the second floor of this building, we believe that everything has been built to code. We trust that it's not going to just fall down.
Right.
But then we also have to walk up the stairs to get up there, right?
Yeah.
So if we're not acting on our faith, all three of those are very important to one another. But it's also, action doesn't have to be huge. When you feel overwhelmed, and everything's crazy, and you have all this pressure of responsibility, you can certainly empathize with this. If you're going to run a marathon, you're not going tomorrow and running 26.2 miles and trying to do that every day.
Right.
You have to put your shoes on, and it might start with a half a mile. It might start with walking just to the end of your block, right? But you have to take the first action, and that small action ends up feeling good, and then you're like, ooh, tomorrow I could do like maybe another mile, or maybe another mile. Hey, maybe I can get some friends. And then that responsibility blossoms. But if I just take it and bury it and say, there's a marathon tomorrow, I'm probably going to fail if I haven't prepared. If I haven't taken some
and responsibility is what bears the fruit. Too. Is when, you know, even taking responsibility for, you know, I messed up. Or to take responsibility for, you know, things that very easily, like the last servant, could be blamed or could be placed. Like that stunts you. That buries it. That itself, like you may bury it, but that almost buries you. But when it's like responsibility, is that almost like that next step to freedom, because then you're taking action on that and saying, okay, where do we go from here? Where do I go from here? How do I continue in this and continuing that faithfulness? Because it's not a one and done deal. I think that's a big thing. Like, we don't realize in the story that there was time that transpired. We read it very quickly. I mean, we read it in all of 5 minutes, but there's this huge delay. A long time transpired. So these guys had day in and day out that, the very easily, it could have been like, okay, the first 2 weeks I did nothing and whatever, but then like, okay, you know what? Like, I still have an opportunity. Like, I'm still going to, like, there's not it's absolutely too late today. Like, oh, I didn't take it the last 2 years of my life, so therefore I throw up my hands and that's it. You know, it's like, how many days did they have to do that?
And I don't know, like I'm stuck on this final guy, because
he's like that's our nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Is to do what he does.
To do what he does. And I think that it's also paralyzing to think about, you know, the end of this parable is like dark and gloomy, and you're going to get thrown into the, you know, you're a worthless slave, throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And of course we have our own thoughts of what that means. However, when we're in that place, is it not true that being irresponsible with our talents we end up getting to a point where we are weeping and gnashing our teeth. Like we get there.
Yep.
We
Absolutely.
get there. Because and it's overwhelming, and when you're in that spot, like what I wrote down was what we don't see is what the listeners, how the listeners responded on the other side of this. So that's what's really cool about Jesus' parables is he tells these stories and stops, and you have to wonder, how did that influence the people that he was speaking to?
Mm-hmm.
Who went home that day and was like, okay, today is the day. I've had this talent. I've had this time. I know what the timeline is. I've been paralyzed by fear. I've been trying to shelter and guard everything to make sure it's good. Today's the day of action.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Or even in the future, after Jesus's death and resurrection, and then reflecting back as like the disciples to say, remember that story he told us? He left. Okay, so master left too. Yeah. Like, who are we going to be? Exactly. Like in our now. And we know from the book of Acts that they decided to be the 5 and 2. And it wasn't easy. No. Oh my word. They all got killed except for one. Like, you know, and I think that's where that aspect of faith, knowing that it's not all butterflies and rainbows, and actually it's gonna be hard. Yeah. It's gonna be hard to utilize that. Like, the easy thing to do is to do nothing. Yeah, and then the other side is also, it doesn't say anything about, you know, these people that had the 5 talents and the 2 talents, how hard they worked to get that. You know, even if they did give it to a bank, you know, where they're constantly concerned that they were losing money for their masters, so they're going back and we're going to move this over here, and again, you know, it's just constantly reevaluating that responsibility to say, okay, this isn't working, and for it to continue to flourish, I need to make a change. Yep. Yeah, and there's just a lot that's in there, but there's just, I love Jesus's stories because they're just so rich, and you can see yourself. Yeah. And like I said, like some of us are 5 talent people, and some of us are jealous of the 5 talent people. Yeah. And we see, they seem to have everything going for them or whatever. But all of them, you know, it's just like the what is it, the Spider-Man quote, like with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. I wrote that. I was like, what is that? It is. What is that? Yeah. But with great, instead of with great opportunity becomes great responsibility. Yes. Right. And that goes for whether you're that 5 talent person or you're the 1. Yep. That does not change. Nope. And so often we can just, like, I can get caught up in saying, but they have this, and they had that, and they got this opportunity, and this person talked to them, and they have whatever, you know, and I just, like, I get caught up in that instead of saying, no, what is it that you have, and how can you utilize it? How can you best steward the gifts and graces and opportunities you have? So it's a good, I think on a daily basis to just be reminded, to ask that, like, you know, where I'm at, what I got. Right. And again, not to be so insular about it, to say, okay, if I'm at a point where I know something doesn't feel right, lean on your community and your friends, go into prayer, you know, do whatever it is that you know you need yourself to do to recenter yourself, to say, okay, this is the direction I need to go. Yeah. And it's so hard. It's so hard when the weight of the world is bearing down on you, or you feel that way, to just take a moment and say, I need to be selfless for a moment and talk with somebody. Yeah. Instead of burying it. Exactly. Don't. Because you never know. That 5 talent person be like, look, I was there. I had my 1 talent, you know, and this is how I went. This is how I got through. Yeah. And now I have 5 talents, because opportunity is going to breed opportunity is going to breed opportunity. Yeah. Yep, that's all part of it. Yeah. We need one another for that, and I think even as a church to assess, what are our opportunities, knowing that the mega church, whoever on the other side of the river, and what they're doing and whatever, like they have a different number of talent, but we have different ones. And what is God? Where we're at with what we have? It's very unlikely. It's very unlikely they opened their door on the first day and had the amount of people that they have today. There's a lot of work. Right, a lot of investment that went into that. Bless that, but let's figure out, and let's keep doing the things. How do we invest what we have? Exactly. And how do we continue that? And let's do that together. Yeah. And instead of, like, very easily the default for church, just like the Big C church, you know, can be to just continue doing what we're doing because we've always done it. Right. And I don't think that's a good stewardship of our resources and our people too. So yeah, it's an adventure. Yeah, and I'm excited about next week because we're going to share some of those stories.
That's great.
And people in our congregation just about how they've been a part of God's kingdom work where they are with what they have.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to come here like on a Sunday morning and think, okay, me, this is what I need to do for me. And then the more you get to talk with people around you, you hear the hurts and the pains and the joys, and the stories are amazing.
Yes.
There are so many amazing stories in this community. And we had guests this week, and we're kind of talking. We're like, how does that person's story go again? I know it's amazing, but I know they have an amazing story. You know, it's powerful to hear
and encouraging.
Yeah. That there's, you know, again, burying an opportunity or being buried for whatever, and then coming out and flourishing and just being able to take advantage of all of what God has gifted us to its fullest potential. So,
Well, very cool. Well, thanks, Alan. Thanks for being here today and sharing. And so make sure you definitely join us on Sunday for our storytelling time. We'll be wrapping up the Parables series, the Storytime series, and then kick off a new series in September too. So which will be pretty cool.
I won't give any spoilers yet.
I know. We'll tell you next week what that's about, but make sure you're here with us for the wrap up. And we hope you guys have a great week. And stay safe, be blessed, and be a blessing to somebody. What's an opportunity in front of you that God is calling you to invest in?
We love you. Have a great week.
Guys.